we kind of hop in. It feels a lot like Double Dutch at the beginning. It's like, ooh, where do you start? Where do you start? And we start here. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. This is good. What is this?
I don't know.
Liquor?
It's liquor. You said whiskey, so there was a bottle there that it had an interesting photo, and then I looked at the back and went, whiskey?
All right.
They said they like whiskey. Let's do this
Deal.
thing. Yeah, it's so funny once you're outside of your wheelhouse, how quickly you become.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just wasted the good stuff on us.
We're smoking cigars that are literally, there are 26 of these left in existence. Those are awesome. This is probably good. I don't know.
You wasted them on us. I feel like that scene from Big Daddy at the beginning where, you wasted the good surprise on you. Like you've wasted the good cigar.
Well,
It is smooth.
It's smooth. It's super old, super aged. I like it. It's a damn good cigar.
So it's our first job that we worked together. Our boss was a big wine guy. And so we would but he was also one like he hated.
But like a wine snob.
Yeah, wine snob, but also wanted to always, anything we did had to be business related. So we'd cut out at like 4:30 and we'd have to do a wine blog.
A wine blog?
A wine blog for the firm. Like,
Okay.
so like you'd have a little, we'd have.
Like we had a firm newsletter with like employment law stuff in it, but it had a column like this month's wine thing.
And so we were all responsible for writing one, Dustin would take January, I'd do February. And so we sit down with a bottle of wine and we discuss, what are you tasting? And like, I have a horrible sense of taste. And so it'd be like, the tannins hit the back of your throat. I'm just sitting here going, I have no idea what we're talking about.
Tastes wet.
That's like with cigars. Like everyone's like, oh, you got this, you got that. It's like, it doesn't burn.
Yeah, smooth, tasty. So you were sitting in there as interns, or you're sitting in there as employees, like first
real job.
Oh no, that was our first job. Yeah.
And you're sitting with the
owner. Yeah. So he had worked for a big firm, went out on his own, and hired me. And then I worked there for 2 years, and then we hired Paul. So yeah, we were the only two lawyers besides him. He owned the place.
lawyers / wine blog writers.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Obviously. Yeah, like I think we even did like a wine tasting event for clients and friends.
We did. Blind tasting.
Yeah, blind tasting. And we were like...
So that way they knew as much as you guys
Right.
did about what they were
100%.
drinking. So let's stop for a second here. We have Paul, Simon, Dustin Paschal. This is my look, Ma. You said I would never achieve anything in 8th grade. So right there to you, because I'm sitting with real lawyers, and I'm not in trouble yet.
Yes.
So this is a good thing.
That you know of.
Yes, that's a good point. And you did lay down a letter. It looks like we could be getting into trouble. So let's move beyond that. So you guys got started. You met at this wine lawyer's place.
Yes.
But
No, I actually went there because I could not find a job to save my life. And he also did like recruiting for lawyers. And so I went to him to get him to try to get me a job somewhere. And his comment to me was, I'll paraphrase it, you're not good enough for me to place somewhere where I place, but I'm looking to hire somebody so you can come work for me. And I was like, if you'll pay me, I'll take it. Even though you've just insulted me, I'll take it.
that's a great negotiation tactic. And then 2 years later, here comes Paul at the front door with seemingly the same experience.
Somewhat, yes. I mean, like I graduated 2007, which was, the beginning of the end for the economy. So very few jobs, and worked. First job was doing contract work out at American Airlines. They had a big lawsuit, and we had about 30 of us, fresh lawyers, in a windowless room, and for 12 hours you would just look at documents. 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. It was just awful. And so from that, got connected to the guy that Dustin was working for, interviewed, and eventually got that job.
Well, and the funny thing, the kicker is when we were interviewing him, so my boss had gotten to the point where he was like, okay, we're going to hire somebody. We need another lawyer. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Because it was just me and him, and like, he wasn't I don't know. He's the boss. He's the owner.
Is he listening?
So I was just like,
Is there a chance he will listen to this?
No.
I'm okay.
No. Give us his name, give us his address, and we'll blacklist him.
And so it's funny, we interviewed Paul, and then we interviewed this woman. And my boss loved to do like a casual interview. So he interviewed them by himself, with me not part of that. But then...
In his sweats on a Saturday for me.
Yes.
Okay, so casual.
Oh.
Also, can you say
super
this woman?
casual.
I don't know if...
I know. I was wondering. I was going to say like this girl, and then because she was young, and I was like, no, that seems demeaning. I'll go this lady.
Okay, this lady.
This lady lawyer.
She interviews with him. He was definitely in his slacks.
Yeah, he was probably more dressed there. Sweats for Paul.
On a Saturday.
And what's funny is then he does the social interview where I get involved, and we did Paul's at our old office. There was a strip mall at the bottom of the office building, and the strip mall had a wine store, and you could drink there. So of course that's where we always went. So we went there with Paul and did wine, and they would do like cheese and stuff. For her, legit, we went to Central Market in Dallas and sat out in their little outdoor area and ate like the pre-prepared food from Central Market. And then at one point he looks over to me and goes, "You want to get some dessert?" And I was like, okay. And he's like, "That Krispy Kreme over there shares this parking lot." And I legit just walked over to Krispy Kreme and bought a box of donuts and was like, "Here, donuts." I'm like,
So she actually turned the job down. That's not why I got it.
No. And so what's funny is, so we do all this, and then I think like a month we just went without hiring anybody. And I was like, "Are we going to hire either one of these people?" And he was like, "Yeah, I just don't know who to hire." And he was like, "I really think we need to hire her because, there's two guys. If we don't get a woman now, are we ever going to get a woman?" And blah, blah, blah. And I was like, "You're not good with women, so we should not hire a woman." And luckily his girlfriend at the time made the exact same comment to him, was, "You're terrible with women, don't hire the woman." And so we hired Paul.
The best man in the running.
The only man in the running. I'll take it.
You guys get in, you work together. How long was it before you decided, hey, screw this wine guy, let's go do whiskey stuff?
So we worked there 5 years together.
Okay.
And then we've now had this coming up on 8 years. So.
But it was literally, you say we decided, we kind of decided. He also decided he just wanted to stop working and came to us and said, "I'm not going to work anymore or do this firm, so y'all can take it, or you can go find other jobs, or okay." And we were like, "Oh, okay, good."
And that was in employment law.
Mm-hmm.
And let's, I think, just be real clear of what you guys focus in is more on the employment side of things. What are kind of the specialties that fall into that umbrella?
Yeah, so we do employment and business. Employment is, both litigation, but then also just advice and counsel. So work a lot with companies' HR departments. Hey, we've got this person who's pregnant. Do we need to give them leave? We got this person who got injured on the job. What do we do with that person? We hate this person. Can we fire them? But they just complained about this, and kind of help them step through those, avoid lawsuits, and then all the discrimination, wage and hour type of lawsuits that come around after that.
Yeah, and it's funny because at the old firm, we would do that, but then we also did immigration, but like business level immigration, which was very form driven, and I hated it. And my boss was notorious for griping at me about not wanting to do something, but not making me do it. And so I hated immigration, so I just wouldn't do it. And instead of forcing me to do it because I'm his employee, we hired someone and had him do it.
So Paul Simon,
I was the good son, like 100%. Like I would, yeah. Paul, do this, okay? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll give you the funny story. Probably like pulling the curtain back too much, but at one point, I'm also not a shrinking violet. I don't keep my opinions to myself, even if it's a boss. And he and I had worked together long enough, and he was casual enough. I would just go at him and just yell at him, tell him what I thought about what he was doing, or whatever. And at one point, and he always just took it. He never shut me down. And at one point, it got so bad. Our office was set up. It was like my office, and then our boss's office, and then Paul's office. My boss and I would communicate to each other through Paul. like a married couple that hated each other
Through the mediator.
communicating through the child.
Through the child.
And so we literally would be like, I'd pass my boss's office to go to Paul's office and say, tell Mike blah, 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 and then go back to my office, and Paul would go down to Mike's office. Dustin says blah, blah, and Mike would be like, well, you tell Dustin blah, 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 and
But it was
I'm
worse
like,
than that.
I can hear you.
Yeah, it would be, I can hear him. You tell him this.
And so then one day, like, my boss was, even though we were an employment firm, he was terrible at performance reviews. But he decided he was going to do performance reviews once, and I went first. And so we walked down the hall to the conference room, shut the door, and he said, I just want to start this with saying you need to decide if you want to keep working here or not, because this is not working, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't fire me. He basically said, you decide if you want to work here. And he said, this review's over. I'm going to go ahead and send you home today. You decide, let me know by Monday if you want to keep working here. I walk out. Mind you, I've been in the room for 5 minutes.
Less.
I walk past Paul's office, and Paul just looks at me like, "What? That was a quick review." And I was like,
Can't talk.
I'm leaving. I can't talk to you right now." And I just walked out and texted him, and I was like, "I'm going to get a drink if you want to meet me. I'll tell you about how I'm supposed to decide over the weekend whether I want to keep working here or not."
So,
And he did for the next 2 years. And so it just made, it was the beginning of the end.
okay. So in that
I don't
instance,
work well for people.
It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you ran him out of his business and then took over his book.
Super nice to clients. Don't get him wrong.
You haven't named any names. And yes, Dustin is nice to clients. I will attest to that. So in that case, in that specific case, let's say you're an employer. Let's say you give somebody the option. This isn't working. If you said, no, I want to keep working here, what would his grounds be to say, well, that's tough. Get out of the building.
He doesn't need grounds. I mean, in Texas, you can fire for any reason or a stupid reason, as long as it's not an illegal reason, you know? And so he could have said, I don't really think you really want to, so get out. I always tell people, like, I could be walking in the neighborhood and a bulldog bites me on a walk, and I come into the office and say, raise your hand if you got a bulldog, and the 3 people that raise their hand, I say, I hate bulldogs, y'all are all fired. That's an idiotic reason. Nothing wrong with it.
Whoa. God bless Texas.
As long as, now where you're going to get into trouble is if you're a firm of all white people and the only 3 black employees you have are the ones that raised their hand and said, I have bulldogs, and you said, okay, you're all fired, I hate bulldogs. They could try to say, well, you were using the bulldog as an excuse. I think you just wanted to fire all the black people. Now you might have a problem. But if it's truly not race-related or gender or age or some other category, yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't, like church, you couldn't say who went to church on Sunday, and if you raise your hand, okay, well, you're fired.
Yeah.
That would be religious discrimination. Right. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I mean, if you wanted, every Monday I'm going to fire one person and it's just random, I mean,
or even
you could do it.
A more common example where people get appearance is not protected in Texas. And so you could come in and say, I only want beautiful people working here. So you're kind of an uggo, get out. And you can do that.
Hang on. You can do that?
100%. As long as
What
you're
about-
not.
what
as
if
long
they're
as you're
fat?
not.
Fat?
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
Texas, like Michigan, I'm from Michigan. Michigan actually does protect heavy people. And I think it's just because we're a little bit bigger boned up there.
Because you pack it on in Michigan.
You have winter. I understand. I have
But see-
Nebraska friends.
But see, then again, it's all shades, because if you do the whole appearance thing and you're only saying that for women, like, I'm okay with ugly men working here, I just don't like ugly women working here. Now you're making a gender-based decision, and that's illegal. And the fat thing, it depends, because obesity at a certain level might rise to the level of a disability. And so if you're firing the fat people, you might be discriminating based on disability.
Let's call them heavy set.
And so
Fat just sounds rough.
it does.
Yeah,
It does.
you're right. But let's be honest. That's why you're it's just like horrible bosses. Yes. You fire the cripple or the fat one, or
exactly,
I'm firing all 3 of you.
Exactly.
That's a great example.
So yeah.
So that's an example of what you cannot do.
Exactly. Yeah. Watch Horrible Bosses or The Office, and typically that's probably not what you should be doing.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, I use The Office for all my examples of things not to do.
So how do you guys have been together, well, you've been together now, 13 years, if I take those? And you worked 5 at the beginning and 8 here?
That's right.
Coming up on 8. Mm-hmm.
How do you keep a partnership and a friendship together through owning and growing a business?
I mean, I don't talk to him ever. No.
It's hard. Like, because we talk about it with other, that's the law firms come and go all the time. Like the amount of firms that, we grew up with and have seen break up, blow up, change happens daily.
It's a lot of type A personalities, and so they're constantly in conflict.
And you get people that join that, they don't like each other, and they still join just because, hey, you've got this book of business, I've got this one, we think they'll meld, and they never do. So we've always taken the approach, being friends first is a good thing. It helps you have those difficult conversations, but at the same time, I do think, we'll get pissed off at each other more so because we're friends, and, probably me, I get more moody than Dustin probably.
Well,
it sounds like I would disagree with that based off of your previous
We
employer.
both get moody. I just grew up in a family where we screamed, and then you got it out. And when you were done, it was like, what do y'all want for dinner? And so it was out. Paul is, let's keep it all inside. So he gets moody and won't tell you he's upset, whereas if I'm upset, I'm going to say, I'm kind of pissed off right now, whereas he's not going to. But I always say, like, the reason... Yeah, he's right. We counsel people, like, when they're starting their own firm, we're like, don't do it based on business. Like, the business will come. Do it based on, do I want to partner with this person and spend time with them? Because, at least in my mind, the way I've always approached it is because we're friends, there's trust. And so I may disagree with a business decision that Paul makes, but I trust that he's not making it for his own self-interest. He's making it because he believes it's the best decision for the business. And I may disagree, but if I didn't have a friendship, then I'm constantly going to in the back of my mind go, is he doing that because it benefits him or because he thinks it's good? I don't have that problem. So even though we may disagree, the personal doesn't come into it because I'm going, okay, well, I think that's a stupid decision, but I don't think you're trying to hurt me. So we can try that if you want. I just don't know if it's going to work out.
Yeah, and I see that with Gabe and myself too, because we became friends and teammates and partners at basically the same time. I met him, brought him down, he started working. So I didn't have a friendship really built up too much ahead where I put that at danger. But there are definitely times where we'll legitimately the figurative hat, we'll just go, okay, we need to talk business for a second.
Yeah.
We need to be, I don't like this direction. I would prefer we go this direction. And we've found a really good match, and we've been very lucky that I think these partnerships that you see that are couples with real estate brokerages or whatever, there's just so much strain in growing a business.
Well, I think the trust is key. I mean, because, you and Gabe, I think it's a good example in terms of, if you see one of you, on a trip or doing this or that, are you putting in as much energy and effort into the business as myself? And that's always hard to quantify too. Now, lawyers quantify it a little bit hourly. Did you put in your 100 hours this week? And if you didn't, then, you need to put in extra next week. But again, at least, both Dustin and I, like, I don't want to be a slave to my job. Like, I want to enjoy my job. And so, I'm going to put in the time I believe is necessary to, run a successful place. And if I need to jump out for a little bit, I know, he'll pick up the slack without judging me for doing that.
What I see with a partnership right now, like with Gabe, and taking somebody, you guys, you had this specialized training in university and graduated, and you basically, it was pretty linear, and then that path. Whereas Gabe was a plastics engineer. It's like, well, this guy doesn't know it, but he's a creative.
Right.
And so we bring him in and put him in, and there are these new things that he hasn't lived in the corporate world and had to do this, so you have to be careful to say certain things, you have to do this. When you're dealing with difficult ex-employees who may or may not be messing with you, don't get into a pissing contest with it. Just step back and put that together. So that was something that we had to go through, like what you guys had mentioned from a partnership. Hey, okay, friend hot kind of still on. What do you think you're going to accomplish here? Like, we have Simon and Paschal right now.
Yeah.
Let them just look. We're paying people to help us out that know what they're doing. We're not going to get anything done. So just pay attention to what's going on and have the people who are there.
Oh, for sure. And you have to. Part of that also is understanding strengths and weaknesses, and like in our partnership, I mean, Paul understands at the end of the day, I'm the asshole. And so if we've got to get aggressive with a vendor or whatever, it's better if I do it. And I understand
Okay.
that I understand that Paul's going to softball him. Like, he's going to let them walk all over him a little bit, and then he's going to hit like a breaking point and explode on them.
I'm with you.
Whereas I'm going to stay pretty aggressive with him from the get-go. And so he'll sometimes try to keep me away from him because he's like, well, you're going to be too aggressive too early.
You're going to screw it up.
But then he's too soft.
We're the same.
He's too soft, and I'm like, okay, now it's gotten too far now. You've
game.
let them walk all over you. We've gone too far. This is enough. And again, though, it goes back to that trust thing where I have to say, okay, I think I might be better at dealing with this from the beginning, but I trust that Paul cares about the end result, so he can do it, and we'll fix it if we have to fix it. I'm not angry that, and vice versa. I mean, and just knowing, I mean, you just have to know, you have to know the other person, and that's where I think the friendship comes in too, because it's the same thing always goes, even with network. Like, I despise networking. I cannot stand the glad-handing fakeness of it. Paul can tolerate that better.
Are you a networking superstar?
I don't like it, but I do it well.
Paul, yeah,
or at least I do it a lot better than Dustin.
I'm insulting in the way I describe Paul's ability at it, but Paul can turn on the fakeness, and he can do the, we are best friends, and then turn around and be like, I don't know that guy, and I'm like, but that guy is,
or even worse.
But I'm like,
that person's horrible.
I'm like,
Paul, you're just talking crap about that person. I said, absolutely. They don't need to know that. Like,
whereas I can't
right
do
then
that.
And there. And
they'll know it. If
yeah. I
think they're an asshole, they'll know it. And so we know if we need to not still have a relationship with that person, we should probably have Paul deal with them.
But I think Dustin's description of him being an asshole, though, it's funny because that's what a lot of people hire a lawyer for. You know, hey, I need someone to be a bulldog. You know, you get that kind of stuff all the time. I'm not sure why we keep referring to bulldogs, but
because we hate
they're
them.
really getting beat up today. Yeah,
they're such sweet dogs. But no, like, I need a bulldog, and I need you to be mean and aggressive. But yet the problem is that's because they're upset, and that's what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but you're hiring us not to do what you want us to do. You're hiring us to solve your issue. And it oftentimes is not by being the biggest dick in the room. It's not by being the biggest aggressor, because aggressor just means it's going to cost you more money. You know, you want this person to do this. I can get them to do that in a way that you probably can't, because I'm going to sit there and say, hey, I know you guys were butting heads and had this fight and this and that. Let's step back and look at reality. Contract says this is what you need to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm asking you to do it, and do it in a way that my client wants without me going to the court and having the judge say, hey, you need to do this, and you need to pay all their attorney's fees to do that.
You know, that's an interesting point, because I think we are accustomed to what we've been shown of what the reality of the world is. Mm-hmm. And I think I see this from cigars, is we're just normal guys sitting around having a cigar, having a drink, relaxing, talking, doing this. This is the reality of what cigars are. Mm-hmm. But if you see, what do you picture as a cigar guy? Well, this is a guy that's a banker that's taken over the world, that is mm-hmm. a villain, that is something. How much of your day to day is just overcoming the stereotype of the bulldog, or of just what a lawyer is? Because that's a huge push as to who you guys are. Is you are not typical lawyers.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overcoming that. There's a lot of setting expectations, because the problem is our job is adversarial. That's our job. Like, the entire point of our job is to be on the other side of someone else and be at odds. Whereas if you're working as a banker, again, yeah, your job isn't adversarial. Your job is, I'm going to try to help you get a loan, or now you may have adversarial moments where you're dealing with a client who isn't paying their mortgage or something, and so you've got to deal with that, but your job's not adversarial. Our job, the whole point of our job is adversarial. And so if you are a quote unquote bulldog nonstop, you're going to kill yourself. Like, it's too much. You can't constantly be in battle. And so we approach a different way. And so, yeah, it's setting expectations with clients of, okay, we're going to work hard to get you what you want. But if you're in the room with me and the other lawyer, you may not see me yelling at that lawyer or insulting that lawyer, because I got to maybe work with that lawyer. That's the other part, is I may have to work with that lawyer in 10 months on behalf of another client. And if I treat that lawyer like shit on your behalf, they're not going to help me when I'm working for this other client, and I've got multiple clients. And so it's setting the expectation of bulldog doesn't mean asshole. I can be a bulldog and still be sweet and still get what we want. Like Paul's point is like, we have to try to get what we want. I always use it in depositions. I always use the example of when you're deposing somebody, if you're aggressive to them, they're less likely to give you the information that you want. And I have always taken the approach of, if you have to be older, I guess, to know the show, but Columbo, and his approach was always, I'm stupid, educate me, because people have a natural inclination to want to help. And so if you play stupid and go, I don't understand XYZ, even though I know, you did something shady, I'm going to pretend like I don't understand, explain it to me, and talk yourself into a hole, and then I'm going to solve the problem for my clients. So you got to set expectations.
So how much of it just sounds like you guys are they hire you to be essentially negotiators in this, and to understand the art form of negotiation. I would have to think that has a lot to do with it, right?
Well, yeah, it's problem solving. I've got this issue. I've got, this tenant that won't move out of my rental. How do we get them out? We can forcibly get them out. We can, send them a letter. We can, go and have a conversation to say, hey, you've breached your lease. You need to leave. And so and again, what does the client want? The client wants them out. So there's 6 ways to get them out. What's the best way to get them out? Option 1 didn't work. Let's go to 2. Let's go to 3. And you problem solve.
Yeah. I always say it's funny. Like you seek clients, like you specifically, you seek clients when it comes to ICC. You seek clients seeking joy. Mm-hmm. Like I want to chill out. I want to have a cigar. I want to have a drink. I want to enjoy myself. Clients come to us in anguish. Like 9 times out of 10, when I get a new client, one of the things they say to me is, well, I hope I don't have to call you again. Or I hope I don't have to talk to you again. I'm like, I get it. No.
It's Brandon just had this call with me 2 days ago. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. No one wants to, because you're paying for something that is upsetting you, as opposed to I'm paying for a cigar that's going to bring me joy.
Well, and it becomes, especially from us, and this is where I'm empathetic to you guys as well, because it's personal. Mm-hmm. It is, especially, and I'm tainting it towards my own view because that's what we have, but it becomes this personal issue where I know the person that is doing what they're doing, and I know why they're doing it, and it is, you have to look at it, and this is where I really level with you and see where you're at, is just cooler heads prevail, just back up. We've done the front end work, and it's just, it becomes a personal issue. It's this fill in the blank. They're going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars potentially because they want to be an asshole.
And what do you get at the end? You get what you were already entitled to start with, and so you're like, I've just spent $10,000 on this Yahoo to get me back to where I started.
Well, in employment, I think it's like family law in the sense of, I hired this person, I gave them all this money, I showed them how to do this. We deal with this in non-competes. I helped this, I showed this person, what my secret sauce was, and they're going and they took my secret sauce and are competing against me. And so that's extremely, you're hurt and it's personal,
mm-hmm.
And so you're not thinking necessarily clearly, I want to ruin this person because they cheated on me. And so that, we deal with that all the time in employment law, and it's difficult.
Well, and some of the quantifiable things, if you've got a secret sauce that they're driving down the road at 80 miles an hour and you've got to stop, they've made that competitive advantage. So how do you quantify the amount of gap that they've created or poached from you and then get back to shit?
Yeah.
It's a tough situation. To be the best case scenario, we're going to be back to square.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to go through it. It's just a really weird roadblock that many people, as we open our business, and you hear that, is if you haven't been in a lawsuit with your business, you just haven't been in business for long enough.
Or you've just been very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. If you haven't had some sort of claim or had to fight somebody, I just don't think you're either haven't been in business that long, or to be frank, you're not that successful because nobody cares.
The stakes are low.
Mm-hmm. But again, it's just like, dealing with that and understanding, and that's part of our job also, is like trying to figure out, like, we are very cold about it because it is our job, whereas it's personal to you. And so it's funny just talking, me and Paul, sometimes we're talking about a client, we're like, God, they will not stop calling me like every 10 minutes and they're blah, 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 blah. And then we have to kind of step back and go, okay, well, they don't do this every day like we do, and this is personal to them. And not that it's not not that we don't take on our clients' fights, but still at the end of the day, to be blunt and maybe somewhat uncaring, but we're going to get paid whether you get what you want or not. We're going to try our damnedest to get it for you, but at the end of the day,
Can we cut this part?
you know, well, I mean, that's the truth of the matter.
But I think it's important no, we're not going to cut this. But what it reminds me of, because look, it reminds me a lot of when we were having our first child. We had some complications. They had to transfer us, go to this other room, do this whole deal. And at first we were in it, so asking questions, and we were doing this. And this reminds me, it runs a lot of parallels because we have a lot of questions we didn't know. But then at a certain point, and to the doctor's point, the doctor's going to get paid whether this birth works out great or not.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it was just, okay, no more questions. You obviously know what you're doing. Okay, you guys take and run with it. I'm going to do nothing here. I don't know what that needle goes to I don't know any of this.
Yeah.
Take it and run with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great example, because the doctors also, they may be perceived mean to you when, hey, I can't answer all your questions right now because we're in an emergency. I'm acting calm, cool, and collective, but it's an emergency and I need to do what I'm doing, and it's what you've hired me to do. So please just sit there and let me do it, and then we'll talk after. Like,
Yeah, do you want me to answer your questions or do the job?
Exactly.
Like, I mean,
you don't hire soldiers to go in and do negotiation. You have them on task, and this has to be their day-to-day. This has to be your day-to-day. If you're approaching everything emotionally, going back to the bulldog, one, you're going to probably burn out and get gray and fat and old.
Right.
But with the other side of things, it's just, if you're basing decisions on emotional factors and you get all in with the client, you're just not going to perform.
Well, and I always tell clients, like, if all you ever look for is the bulldog lawyer, and that's what you're going to hire, is the one who's going to yell at everybody, you probably don't have a good lawyer to solve your problems. Because in our world, even though it seems like there's just tons of lawyers, it's a small community, and we learn the jerks and the ones that we say we're not going to work with them. And when I say don't work with them, I mean we're required to work with them because we're in a case or whatever. But we're probably going to take the approach of, if that lawyer wants a favor, like, hey, I've got to travel for something with my family, this thing that's due tomorrow, can I have a week to do it? We're likely to go, no, because we know that lawyer. And so it filters down to the clients. So I always tell clients, like, be careful when you say you want the asshole lawyer, because you may have what you think is a good lawyer, but you're going to pay more in the long run because that lawyer has developed a reputation where other lawyers are going to make them work more and work harder. And all that means is more hours and more billing to you. So you don't have the right, you think you have a good lawyer, but you don't.
Yeah, and that person, I mean, the aggressiveness it's the, if you want to look at the judge as the parent, you never do that sort of conduct in front of the parents. You always do it outside, the courtroom, which doesn't actually, anything outside the courtroom is purely
posturing. It's just for show.
It's posturing, but it's also where things can get, handled and settled without a judge making the decision. But once both attorneys go in front of that judge, the demeanor is the same. And the judge is just looking for, what does the law say? Who can articulate it the best? Who has the better case? And I'm going to go for them. So to me, all the aggressive stuff is always outside. And it's just like, I know you're a bully. That doesn't scare me. I'm not going to yell back at you because it doesn't solve anything. And so if this is how you want to be, let's just go to the judge and let's have this conversation, and I'm going to win. Like, and that's the problem, is it's a showmanship. And I think some clients love that show, but it doesn't get the problem solved.
Yeah. Like there's a lawyer in town that he's known. It doesn't work as well now in today's day and age with technology, but back when fax machines were kind of the thing, that's how lawyers sent things, was through fax. and that lawyer was known, he would turn his fax machine off at 5 o'clock so you couldn't send him things. And he just developed a reputation. And so now he's got a reputation in town. Everybody goes into that litigation with him thinking, I'm going to screw that lawyer over. Well, now his client's not getting good service because they're paying more for their lawyer to have to overcome all of his previous bad behavior.
Yeah, you're paying for the sins of the previous sins of your attorney.
Yeah, because it's a community. I mean, lawyers are a community, like it or not. And so, and that's what we always say, like, we're bound by ethical guidelines too. And so that's like, a lot of times we'll tell a client, like, I'm not going to do that for you. It's not against the law for me to do that, but that will harm me in 5 years. And I have a business to run. So if that's what you want me to do, find a different lawyer. I think clients don't always know that.
Well, and we saw that as well. Last week we spoke with Mayor Cheney. From a messaging and from a branding side of things on Go Local, we don't want to touch anything political with any sort of touch. But we got to know Cheney, and he said, we said, we'll be in on this if we're staying positive.
Sure.
The first time we turn negative is going to be the last thing we ever do. Right. And there was a moment when they brought in someone else, and they came in, and they proposed this deal, and we just laid it to Cheney and said, if this goes out, this will be the last thing we do for you. And he went, okay, that sounds good. No, we're staying positive. And I thought, okay, this is the right guy.
And from a business perspective, that's hard because, we're
especially a small business.
Well,
especially a small business.
Small and a new business. We're year 8, and the type of client and work we would take year 1 is completely different than now because you have to, but it always, like, every time we took one of those clients where you knew, like, this is not going to be a good client, and it never turned out good. Like, and so you've learned to say, it's not worth it. I'm going to walk away from that little bit of money because I'm going to make up for it later on and deal with better people. You have
to have faith in yourself. Like, we had an intern once, and then after he left, I remember years later we went to drinks with him, and he was a practicing lawyer, and his style is not what we would recommend. So we clearly did not intern him very well. But he had the comment to us. He's like, well, y'all do things that I wouldn't do because it doesn't really make you any money. It doesn't do that. And our thing was, but it does. It may not make us money today, but we firmly believe in 5, 10, 15 years, it will make us money because we are developing a reputation where we don't do that kind of work for people, or someone can't pay us, but damn it, they need help, and so we'll do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I've got a story for that. We've got a client now that we had at the old firm, and we still do work for him. And the amount of times that, he basically will agree with me because he's like, you talked me off the ledge 3 years ago to not go after that. And so I'm going to trust you now when you're saying, hey, we need to spend money and go after this, because he knows I'm not doing it to line my pockets. I'm doing it in his best interest, and you've got to build up that reputation so that they trust you.
What's a question that I have, because some of the people who are watching are fresh. They're in that element of, I just need a book of business right now. I need to grow. I need to do this. You talked about some of the people that you knew probably weren't the best, but you got to keep the lights on. You got to feed the family. Knowing what you know now, what is a landmine that you stepped on previously that you could learn from, whether it's law or just in your business? And knowing that, would you do it again, knowing where you were and having the knowledge that you pulled out of the other side?
I think, the line is, there's a difference between doing work that you don't really enjoy and like versus doing work that's going to harm you. And I think that's the line you got to find. So, there's work that we took that, it wasn't great work. It was kind of ugly. It was small and more time consuming than it was worth. But yeah, you needed that $1,000 to pay rent. So you took it, versus something that may, to your point in terms of, this is going to harm me for future business. Future people are going to see this and say, you guys did this kind of work. I don't want to use you. I wouldn't take the $1,000 and lose that opportunity.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not trying to, I don't want to give the impression that we're perfect or anything, but yeah, I'd agree with Paul. I think we took business that we didn't like and that wasn't necessarily in our area. That's different to me. We wouldn't do that now. That's different to me than we took work that would be harmful and we just needed the money. I think we've been pretty good about, even if it's going to hurt, that we don't take that business, we're pretty good about not taking that business, saying that's just in the long run, it's going to hurt. And that's always my advice to small business owners. And it's advice that it's not easy, but, and I'm kind of a principled person anyway, in all aspects, but I have a lot of faith that it plays out, that it'll play out well. Like, we may have a year or two where it's like, I don't know how we're going to make this work, but I'd rather struggle through that thinking, okay, we're doing it the right way. It's going to pay off. And I think it does. And so, yeah, I mean, we took business we didn't like, but nothing that I thought, this makes me feel dirty. Mm-hmm. I don't think we ever did that.
And what I'm taking from that is just ultimately your view isn't to the next client. Your view is years down the road, and just having that more sought after. What's not going to help rent this month? What's going to help growth 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now?
Well, and I think the biggest complaint you hear from people who hired lawyers was they gouged me. Like, the amount of people I know who, use bigger firms because, if I spend more, it's got this prestige. They're clearly better lawyers. They'll spend $100,000. They don't get what they wanted, and they just feel like, I just got screwed. Like, these people just took advantage of me, and I don't ever want a client to feel like I took advantage of them. I want them to be able to say, Paul kept saying, if we go this route, it's going to be expensive, and you've got a 25% chance, that we may not win this, but if you want to keep doing it, we can do it. I want them to be able, they may not be the happiest, but they're going to say, this is what Paul said was going to happen. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing, is plenty of lawyers look at people just as, this person just put down a retainer and let me see how quickly I can get through it. Every time they call me, I keep telling them, don't talk to me, but they just keep calling, and I'm going to keep billing them, and all of a sudden say, hey, you ran through that retainer. And it's like, well, but you haven't gotten any of the job done. And I was like, you need to really help clients understand, like, look, this is the process, and educate them.
Yeah, because I would say, like, we've been known, both of us been known to be on a phone call for an hour with a client, basically spending the entire hour trying to talk the client out of giving us money. Because, we'll look at it and go, okay, we can make $20,000 in the next month on this client. And then this client's probably, they're going to be mad at us, but they're going to feel like they spent $20,000 and got nothing. Mm-hmm. So we'll probably never hear from them again. Or we can get $1,000 out of this client, and this client in 40 years, when our firm's still operating, is still going to be coming back to us for various needs. And in the long run, we're going to make a lot more money on that client doing that than getting the quick 20 grand out of them, and we never hear from that client again.
With better service. And I see this running such a unique parallel to what we do at the Go Local Group, which is we develop these marketing strategies that are 6 months at a time, years, a year or more at a time. And it is a very uncomfortable first 90 days because they're paying us to develop the assets, but then they're excited because we're doing things, but then they go on and they're saying, hey, where's this stuff you were talking about? Well, 90 days, it takes that long to set something up and build it. And then once it goes live, the best analogy is, as a true Nebraskan, when you're pumping the well and you're just sitting there pumping, you're kind of just pissed off at my grandpa. I'm like, there's no water in this well. Right. No, keep going. And you get a drip. And then you just stay at it. And there's a point of discomfort with all of our clients that we come across for longer term that are higher grossing, where they go, this just isn't working. No. Just trust me. Stick with it right now. Don't jump ship. Yep. Just keep going. We've already done that. But there are those moments of reflection of, what did we pay for? Well, here's what we paid for. Paid for the knowledge in the white papers and everything of just watch where this goes and watch how it grows. And especially for you guys, I see that too, is just trust us right now. This is what we do.
Well, and I mean, we have, in terms of building our firm, using SEO companies and stuff like that, there's a trust aspect to it. And I mean, you see it, there's the firm that $20,000 a month, and there's a firm that's $300 a month. And it's like, what's the difference? And there's, somewhere in between. It's difficult.
It's a weird thing. And it's a really weird thing, because the response could always be, well, I can get these guys for $300 and they're going to give me fill in the blank of what they, yeah, they're going to give it to you, but what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know the first SEO firm we used, it was, they weren't real expensive, but they also were like, okay, you know, your website needs to have just these cookie cutter words that are just like those SEO words. I was like, but it looks like crap. It reads, you know, and so we were like, well, we want to have this robust, you know, looks like lawyers wrote it, and it's that fine line between, okay, you guys can do that, but then your SEO is going to suck, and you know, and it's finding a company that can sit there and say, I can get you that, but I can also get you the SEO, you know, and you know, like that's with you guys, you know, we've built up that trust to where, you know, the video you guys are producing for us now is way more than what the first ever video we you know did, but we trust that you guys are going to get us the result that is what we're looking for.
Exactly. And I think you have to, and it's really cool because the same way you look at your clients is you have to care for your clients. You have to care for the outcome, just as the doctor did, just as you guys do. You have to care about the outcome enough to look at it more than, oh, here's a fill in the blank of an X dollar number of client. We have to know that what we're delivering is going to be something that everyone's going to be happy with. And unfortunately, you guys live in a world where even in best case scenario, they might not be happy because they had to bite a bullet that they shouldn't have had to bite.
Sure.
And that's the difference is we get this shiny, beautiful thing that we get to go after and show it. And there's that where you guys can say, look, you only had to spend $10,000 instead of $100,000. Okay.
Yeah, and then that's also why I say, like, I tell people, show passion, because you may not always get the result that the client wants, but if the client can see that you're passionate, they're much more forgiving because they say, well, you were in it too. Okay, we didn't reach the result we wanted, but I can see you care. And so that's why I always tell people, don't take business you're not passionate about because it's going to show. I mean, we've had plenty of cases where, I mean, we had one out in Midland where we were representing a client and we went to trial and we're arguing our hearts out to the judge, and we ended the trial and there was no judgment yet from the judge, but the client was like, I'm in love with you. Like that, you expressed what we wanted. We felt like our voice was heard. We ended up losing that trial because at some level it's not our ability so much as just the law. We lost the trial. The client's not mad at us that we lost the trial because the client saw we cared and we put the energy and the effort and the passion into it. And I think if you don't have that passion, it's going to show. And so if you lose, then they say you lost and it looked like you didn't really care. And so that's why I'm always like, with business, I'm more willing to turn down business that I just don't think we really care all that much about, because if it doesn't come out in favor of the client, then we lose twice, in my opinion.
It's almost like that, coach. I don't mind losing this game as long as you guys were really pushing for it. And there is an optic, and there's value in what you were saying towards the beginning, which is if your role is to be, we'll just say drier and more direct. Well, there's added benefit to that versus like you and I think are the same boat. I want to have that experience in the client and build the trust and know that we're there for them. And that's where Gabe sits in that position. Like, no. We need to be clear what we have now, because he saw if we're not clear now, you're going to see when we go through those difficult conversations, you know, well, what exactly are you doing? You're just smiling at me the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where a balance of your team is so necessary.
Well, it's also interesting. I always take the approach, and maybe it's because we are like lawyers where people hire us to do something they can't do, even though I guess you can always kind of represent yourself, but that translates to our business. We hire people to do what we can't do. We hire y'all to do marketing videos for us because we can't do, I mean, yeah, we do our educational videos, but that's not the same thing. But same thing, we hire a CPA because taxes is not our forte. So hire a CPA. And you have to have faith. And I think when you run your business, you got to have faith that you're asking your clients to put their faith in you. Then to make your business successful, you need to put your faith in your vendors to make sure that they're maximizing your business the way you want to, and let them do that because that's their expertise. And we try to do that all the time. Like, okay, that may not be what I do, but I trust you, so I'm going to do it. Even very baseline example, we just moved offices and hired someone to decorate it. There were times where I was like, I don't think that's going to look good, but just back away and go, well, that's what she does. And then she does it, and we're like, oh, it's friggin' fantastic. So, you just have to let it go sometimes.
And so you're new to you're not new to Frisco, but you are now in Frisco. You have your home base. Mm-hmm. What's next? What's on the horizon for you? Did you feel it?
Just keep living. No. I think, year after year we've continued to grow, and we've grown the way we want to grow. And we just moved to Frisco. Both Dustin and I have lived here. I've lived here for 10 plus years. Dustin's a little bit less than that, but so trying to, kind of really, I think, ingrain ourselves from a business perspective even more into this city. I think, we don't want to add necessarily more lawyers. We've got the capability of getting where we want to get with the manpower we have. So,
but you talk about deeper into the community, and I do want to just slide over just a little bit, because you already are very deep within the North Texas community, and by doing this, the Texas Big Star Half Marathon 5K. Talk to just a little bit about that, because we did some stuff together from a video perspective. Absolutely brilliant. You guys, it's a cool energy, and this isn't just a little 5K that you sit aside and throw some banners up. There is a whole vendor city. It is a legitimate event. So why do you spin that plate?
I think at the end of the day, both Dustin and I, there's things more important than making money. And so both of us, love to volunteer and give back. We've been heavily involved in volunteer organizations that are legal-based, human resource-based. And then we established a charity up here in Frisco, North Texas Community Giving Foundation, that is the kind of charity that receives all the money from the half marathon we've put on, and over 5 years, with an asterisk. We've had a few weather and COVID, but been able to give around $300,000 to local charities through that, and that's just something. I do think it gives us exposure, and which probably does trickle down to helping the business. But at the end of the day, that's not why we do it. We just enjoy helping others. I think as lawyers, that's called to help others. And so plenty of times where you're taking phone calls from people, that you're not getting paid at all. You're just kind of giving them advice as to, this is what the law says, this is what you should do, just helping them out.
Yeah, I think it's just a natural extension of work. Lawyers, at the end of the day, we're in the service business, and I think it just, that's what we enjoy, that's what we do, and so it just kind of naturally extends. I don't think either one of us want to be a part of a community and just be a business, and that people feel forced, again, because no one wants to use a lawyer, and so we don't want to be just those guys that, when you're forced to, you can call them. We'd rather people want to interact with us, engage with us, use us, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So on the other side of things, for people who may be watching who are just hopping into, maybe they spent all of 2020 hating what they were doing, or been let go and decided, hey, I'm going to change my focus and take control over what I do and what supports my family. What are some of the advices that you may have based on what you know of starting something that's a passion project or fun, or maybe it's a business? What would you do, and what would you recommend for other people to do?
I think I always say harness the fear, as cheesy as that sounds, but we talk about, we were at the other firm, and while we had casually talked about, hey, maybe one day we'll have our own thing, blah, blah, our boss kind of forced our hand by saying, I don't really want to do this anymore. And so we were forced to either go find another job at a different firm or do our own thing. And it's scary. I always joke that literally when he told us that, I had proposed to my now wife a month before. And so I remember going to her and just being like, so it's still fresh, so you can now change your mind, because I don't have a job anymore, and Paul and I are going to just try to start our own thing. So there's an element of, it's going to be scary as hell, but at the end of the day, it's different stresses. To me, it's always, when you work for somebody, whether you want to admit it or not, you have no control. They could fire you, like we talked about at the very beginning. They could fire you at any time for any reason. So you may think you have
less
risk, but you don't. Mm-hmm. And you still have stress about if the firm's doing bad, I don't control it because I don't own it. And the first person gone is me. Whereas now it's, okay, the firm may be having a rough go at various points, but I control it. So it's a different kind of stress. You're still stressed because it's your thing, but I control the stress now, and so I can do X, Y, Z. And so for me, it was always just harness that fear. Like, it's going to be scary as hell a lot. And you just roll with it. And I think that's also why it helps having a business partner that if you're going to do it alone, that's one thing. But if you're going to have a business partner, that's to me where it helps to have a business partner that's friends. Because, yeah, when it gets rough or scary, you're just like, screw it. We need to go have a drink right now. We're just not even going to talk about business. I can't think about that right now. We got to do something else. And you're doing that with someone who understands it. Yeah, I can go do that with my wife and say, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's just go have a drink. But she's not in it. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't have that same thing.
Yeah, I get the same thing too, because there are certain days where I'll work, like every Tuesday I'll work 7 a.m. to 11 at night. Mm-hmm. That's just scheduled. And then Wednesday you follow up with the long day, and then we get to the end. She goes, how's work? I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't want to talk about it because mm-hmm. I want my time to be with you. Mm-hmm. And she wants to know what's mm-hmm. happening, mm-hmm. but I don't want that to cloud the time with my kids, with my wife.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, the one practical tip I would give people who, either want to start a business or who've even been in business for a while, and I'll give credit to Rich Allen, who's a business coach here in Frisco, is write down your goals. I think, Dustin and I are both people that just kind of, we're going to go in and swing and not necessarily, plan things out. We're not people that spend a year just kind of, business plan, just writing things, go and do it. But so first year, we just went in and just kind of winged it. And then we went to one of Rich's seminars, and, he talked about, writing down your goals and what the percentage is. But, I think you hit, if you don't write down your goals, you basically hit maybe 10%, versus when you write them down, you hit about 80% of your goals. And we did that year 2. And it really does, it helps, to write it down, because one, you've committed yourself to say, that's my goal, I want to hit it. But it also, it focuses you. So, we did the 1 year, 3 year, 10-year type of goal planning. And I found that to just instantly saw a change within months on year 2 versus year 1, when we just kind of had metrics, let's get this many new clients. Let's, do this many new networking. Let's, revenue goals, all these, different types of things. Mm-hmm. It was amazing that it actually just kind of all of a sudden it worked.
Yeah, and I'll even piggyback off of that, because I couldn't agree more. And the one thing that helped me the most is take that sheet, and I just have a who am I sheet, and I've mm-hmm. got the goal sheet of just 12, 18, 24 months, and I laminate them and I put them in the shower. So mm-hmm. every day mm-hmm. I look at them, and every single day, and every 21 days that I mark down that I got it, I'll reward myself with something.
Yep. And we put them on the wall.
Yeah, we had our goals on the door in kind of our workroom, and so you'd see them every time you were in the workroom. You'd see them and just kind of go, we're close there. We hit that one. We haven't hit that one. And yeah, it just kind of reminds you, what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that, gentlemen, I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for us. Thank you for your time. This is cool. It's cool to have lawyer friends that I like hanging out with.
Exactly. Well, thanks for having us. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's this to me is the example of what we want to be, which is we don't want to be the lawyers that nobody wants to spend any time with. Because again, you're turning over your life. So thanks for having us.
So if someone wants to know more about Simon Paschal, where do they go? Can they learn more? And what can you help them with on that side of things?
Yeah, so website, simonpaschal.com, Paschal, Paschal.com. So you can see everything. We've got our email, cell phone, best way probably to contact us.
Yeah, we always say that every law firm should have a name that you don't really know how to spell or say, and so that's me.
You've got it.
Paschal,
that's my job.
Yeah,
whatever, Hey.
So with that, Paul Simon and Dustin Paschal.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.